I believe we can get a much better look at the boot sequence, the initial boot sequence after provisioning the SD card for the Raspberry Pi Zero. So bear with me for just a moment. I'm going to try to make that a reality. All right. So while that's booting, give it just a few seconds. It doesn't take very long, but in this run, in this cut, you'll get to see the true boot sequence of the Pi Zero after provisioning. I think we're almost done here. Cool. So here's a Raspberry Pi fresh out of the box, so to speak. And let's go ahead and do our first log on. All right, and there we are. Now, as it stands, this Pi doesn't do much. We have a nice console. We can take a look at the drive partition and all that good stuff. We see we've got 27 gig available on the root partition, which is the majority of that 32 gig flash drive, so we're looking good. I think what I want to do now, since the disk has already been expanded, I want to set up something cool. And as I go through this description, it may not seem so cool because I got a bunch of PCs around me, and some of the stuff that I do, arguably you could say, well, you could just do that on your PC. But bear with me through this series. Subscribe to the channel, by the way, so that you stay tuned. But bear with me through the series, and I think you'll see something pretty interesting as this thing evolves. But keeping it focused, in this segment, in this video, we're going to go ahead and set up that something cool. So obviously, or maybe not obviously, with this being the Pi Zero W, we've got onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Now, I could go ahead and set up Wi-Fi, but doing that on video would expose my network. Don't really want to do that. What I will do, though, is configure a scenario where this Pi can be used by, I'll call it, another device over the USB port, over that device's USB port via Ethernet. So let me try to explain that a bit better. I'm going to configure a setting or a series of settings here on the Pi that when I connect this Pi to the USB port of another device, could be a PC, could be something else, that other device will be able to communicate with the Pi using the Ethernet protocol over USB. I think that's pretty cool. And if you let your imagination run a bit, you might happen upon what makes that so cool. But again, I'll make that obvious in the series, later on in the series. So So let's set that up. See if I can remember how to do this. First thing I need to do, I think in the boot partition, yeah, there's a config.txt and a command line.txt. Okay, I need to edit these two files. So I'll edit config first. And I think the command is dt overlay dwc2. I think that's right. We'll see. We'll go ahead and save that. And in the command line.txt, right after root wait, we're adding modules load dwc2 and g underscore ether. Hopefully I have those right. I am also going to place an empty file on the root of the system called SSH, and reportedly the existence of this file upon next boot will enable the Pi to allow SSH connections. Let's take a look at the interface config while we're here. And you see we have a wireless LAN interface currently not configured and the loopback. Keep that in mind. Keep this screen in mind, because if I've done everything correctly, when I restart, I think this screen should change. So let me go ahead and do that. Let's see if I can spot anything interesting in this boot sequence to point out for you. Okay, I didn't see what I was expecting. Let me check this out. Okay, I didn't see it. I guess it scrolled past more quickly than I expected, but you notice the difference now in the interfaces list. In addition to the wireless LAN and the loopback, you now notice that I have a USB 0 interface as one of my Ethernet adapters. Pretty cool, right? Now I can use this, without connecting to any other networks. I can use this to connect to the Pi from the machine that I'm using to record this video. And in fact, I think I'm going to cut the video here, move over to screen recording to demonstrate that capability for you. But before we do that, we do want to make sure that SSH has in fact been enabled. So let's do okay, and it is not running, so we want to take care of that. Okay, SSH is now running, and so now we'll transition over to the desktop on the PC to take a look at some config over there. Now, in order to pull this part off, there are a couple things I need to do. One, I need to change the orientation of the cables for the Pi. Right now I have a USB cable, the USB cable that's connected to the computer, that's currently going into the power port. And actually I can show you this with one of the other samples, assuming I can get it out of the packaging. All right, right now, if you take a look at the Pi, this USB port here, that is for power only. And as at the moment, the USB cable coming from the computer is connected to this port. This second USB port, this can be used for power and data transfer. And right now I have a physical keyboard connected to this port. This is how I've been typing characters into the Pi so far in this video. And over here we have an HDMI port. So what I'm going to do, and this will be a bit off camera just because I can't easily reorient things, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the physical keyboard. I'm going to take that USB cable coming from my computer, take it out of this port, and then put it into this port. Right? And put this one back in its packaging for safekeeping. Begin reorienting my cables. All right, USB into the other port. And so now I want to take you over to the settings dialog here on the computer. Give the Pi a few more moments to boot. I can keep an eye on it over here. Actually, you can see it because I'll overlay the video as well. All right, that's finished booting. And you'll notice that in the networking dialog, after a quick refresh, we have a new physical adapter, USB Ethernet. Now, I think what you're going to see here, hopefully my audio's been okay. I need to move my mic up some. Sorry about that. That should sound better. What you're going to see here is this will sit at the connecting phase. And what you're not seeing on screen, because I have this focused on the settings window, is I'm getting a message every so often letting me know that activation of this network adapter has not succeeded. What you want to do, what I did on another machine earlier today, was I went in to configure it, and I went over to IPv4 and said set it up for link local only, and I did the same thing for IPv6, and then I'm going to apply those settings. And hopefully, maybe I need to disable and re-enable, but let's give this a moment and see if this connects successfully. All right, still getting a failure notice. Let me go ahead and disable this and then re-enable it. And now you see that it connects immediately. So what we have here is a USB Ethernet adapter emulated, connected directly to the Raspberry Pi Zero, and we can now access it via the USB port. So if I go over here, I'll bring you off of the settings screen while I set up a new scene here. Let's clear the screen. And now let's attempt to connect to our Pi Zero. So I'll say SSH. I've got a lot of identities on the machine configured by certificate. So I'm going to tell the SSH command not to use any of those. Pi at Raspberry Pi.local, and our default password, and we are in. All right, fairly straightforward. So in this video, we have looked at configuring a Raspberry Pi Zero, its USB interface. Remember, the USB interface that supports data and power. We can configure that to function as an Ethernet adapter and connect to it from a USB connected PC. That'll conclude this one. Again, think about the implications of something like this, the abilities, what this affords you, and I'll reveal the details in a later video.